Through storms, unshaken, unbowed. Through trials and verdicts, still standing proud. A titan in the tempest, against the raging crowd. He's got a vision for the future, gonna shout it aloud. Changing the wind, it's coming fast. A new foundation built to last. Cryptocurrency's the key, make the big switch. Power to the people, time to teach the rich. Legal battles can't hold him, he's moving on. With plans so bold, from dusk till dawn. He's rewriting the rules, a new dawn's day. From the hands of the few to the people's way.
Good morning, everyone. I hope everyone is having an awesome start to their Trump day, and welcome to the Crazy Cryptonaut channel. I am Zester, and I have gotten a haircut, and so I am feeling a whole lot better. On that one. It's a lot colder down here in Puerto Rico now than it was just a few days ago. What's up, everybody? And loving my t-shirt from Kukla this morning, my first day wearing it. Thank you so much, Kukla, for sending that one along. Definitely going to wear it proudly. Happy Trump Day, Mile High Trish, and happy Trump Day, Kukla. Kukla, happy Red October. Hey. Stephen Carr. Hello, Zester. I hope you're doing well. Thank you so much, Stephen. I hope you're doing great this morning as well. What's up, Jeremy? Good morning. Morning there, Mark 7D. Welcome. Cecilia. Welcome, Treebeard. Welcome, everybody. I hope everyone is having a great week. And we've got an interesting one today, and I'm actually kind of surprised that the community isn't already freaking out about the XRP news, because we have had a person leave the XRP team who is, well, especially when it comes down to the overall conservative side of cryptocurrency, and the conservative side of the XRP holders, he really was a big deal. And so we're going to jump in and talk about that one quick. Soon as I say hello and good morning to everybody that I don't miss, we're going to jump right into it. Good morning, Shannon. Good morning, James. Good morning, Pamela. What's up, Speed Racer? Yeah, Kukla, I will do. Let me do that before I go any further, because I do like the back as well. So yeah, let me do a spin real quick. Yeah. No, very nice one. Very nice. And fits very well on me also. So no, thank you so very much on that, Kukla. Very excited. And yeah, my ears are back and I don't have to keep pushing stuff out of my eyes. It was when my foot was hurt. During that time, I had an appointment set with the barber, and I canceled because I didn't want to be doing any extra driving right after I injured it. And so it had gotten extreme, even for me. And I like letting it go long for a little while. I enjoy letting it go a little bit, enjoying it while I've got it. And but it had gone way too far. But all right, guys, let's jump right into it. Of course, we're going to start with the overall market because, well, things are a lot better than they were just a few days ago. On Friday, remember Friday, I didn't even want to show everybody the market. I was like, everybody, you're going to be far happier if you don't even look at what's going on in terms of the prices. And well, for most of the weekend, it stayed unpleasant to look at, but we are seeing a fairly strong recovery in terms of the prices. And so back over 4.1 trillion on the overall market cap. Bitcoin sitting at $117,500. Ethereum back well over 4K at 4,336. XRP Well, we're getting back to our $3, sitting at $2.94. And one particularly impressive one is, BNB still maintaining above 1,000. BNB is a cryptocurrency and a project that we don't talk about very often on the show. And I was actually thinking about that one this morning. I think I need to change that a little bit. I think we need to focus on BNB a little more. And the reason that it really wasn't a lot of focus is because of how many problems Binance as a company, the Binance crypto exchange, has had. Because BNB, that crypto that you're seeing on there in the 5th slot, is representing essentially the Binance exchange. The Binance exchange is the highest per volume exchange on the planet for cryptocurrency. We, as Americans, we got kicked out essentially a long time ago, back during the first Trump administration. We got kicked out from using Binance. But Binance is a very, very interesting project. And all things considered, Binance is pretty much like a cockroach. Binance has gone through extreme government oversight and persecution, and they've always managed to survive, and not only survive, but many times thrive. And so not too unexpected to see that Binance is doing very well at this point, but I think we're going to start talking about it a little more. And so I'm going to cover stories about Binance a little more often than I have in the past, because there is a lot going on that really, in terms of Binance, is stuff that we're not hearing about in the United States, because most of Binance's business is everywhere else in the world. And so even going through just the most recent happenings, Kazakhstan has started launching a government-backed Binance treasury fund, actually partnering with Binance Kazakhstan in order to start these crypto funds. Binance also, whenever there is a hack, Binance actually recoups everybody's money. And so we're going to start covering that one a little bit more. Just wanted to start getting BNB onto everyone's radar a little bit more. But let's get right to the big one. As soon as I make certain, thank you so much, Coco, for making certain I've got this one. Before I jump in to the articles and all of that, please do remember that the content in this podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes and not intended to provide financial advice. Please consult with a financial professional before making investment decisions. Thank you so much, Coco, for making certain I get that one. But, all right. Our big story of the day on the XRP side, Ripple Chief Technology Officer David Schwartz to step down amid crypto payment competition. So, many folks, if you have been in the XRP community for a long time, you've probably seen videos of this guy's face. You've probably seen live streams, long-form discourse and conversations provided by David Schwartz because, David Schwartz was one of the original coders for the XRP ledger. He literally built it. And so David Schwartz started, I believe, back in 2011. I've got the numbers in front of me, so I need to make certain I don't mess them up. Started back in 2011 as a cryptographer, was then later promoted to CTO in 2018. But really what he has, what he can very solidly state is that he is one of only 3 engineers who actually architected the XRP ledger. And so there were only 3 guys who built the basic beginnings of the XRP ledger. And David Schwartz was one of those. And so he spent 13 years over at Ripple. And now he is not entirely stepping away from Ripple Labs, from the company. Ripple CTO did not provide a reason for the move, but said he was excited about spending more time with his family and dedicating more time to coding. He also said he will continue to play a role at the firm as CTO Emeritus and has accepted an offer from Ripple co-founder Chris Larsen to join the firm's board of directors. Dennis Jarosh, Ripple's vice president of engineering, is set to take over the CTO position from Schwartz starting next year. Ripple, the company, has yet to make any announcement in regards to this. David Schwartz has yet to make really any type of announcement saying why he is stepping away, besides, of course, that he'll get to spend more time with his family and that he'll get to focus more on the coding side, which was how he got in to the business. He is a cryptographer. And so in that way, he was a coder. He wasn't necessarily, the overall technical officer there at the beginning, but he evolved into it. Many folks will have seen this guy. And so many folks will have seen him because a variety of times, David Schwartz's different videos went particularly viral. Sometimes because of things he actually said, and sometimes because of, essentially malactors out there. And so David Schwartz is probably someone that you've seen in some of the different videos talking about how high the price of XRP could go. Ripple defends its stance as XRP price claims go viral. This would have been 9 months ago. Ripple CTO David Schwartz reacted to the widely circulated, far-fetched XRP price predictions circulate within the crypto community. His latest comments responded to rumors suggesting that the cryptocurrency would rise to as much as $10,000 to $15,000 following potential ETF approval. Schwartz was cautioning against misinformation while expressing his frustrations. He explained that Ripple's challenges during the ongoing lawsuit have prevented them from responding to false narratives. There were things that were indisputably true that I could not say, Schwartz stated. However, he noted that he often felt relieved when other community members challenged such narratives. In the conversation, ex-user Dark Horse reflected on Ripple's strategy of relying on the XRP army to combat misinformation. He criticized this approach, claiming it only amplified misinformation and led to the spread of clickbait. However, Schwartz defended Ripple's stance, explaining that directly responding to misinformation could make it worse, adding that some predictions are difficult to challenge without calling them lies. You can't really say that a prediction is a lie. Meanwhile, another community member, Maxier, suggested that Schwartz could address misinformation by creating short videos debunking XRP-related myths, but you won't do that, Maxiel said. He added that because XRP will become a scam and an outcast among loyal fans, it's a vicious circle, and you're a part of it. And so there's been a lot of back and forth in regards to David Schwartz. You've undoubtedly seen this guy's face in some videos if you've been in the XRP space for a long time. And well, this comes at a bit of a rough time, in all honesty, because this really is where the rubber is meeting the road in terms of crypto payments. There is a lot of competition, and there are a lot of companies that are trying to catch up with Ripple. And in many different facets, they are, potentially positioned very well to do an even better job or to potentially become competitive very, very quickly. And so a few that are mentioned here inside of the article, there are others. But in recent months, several other firms have inked partnerships and launched their own infrastructure in a bid to compete in this sector, to compete directly against XRP. Remember, when it comes down to it, very often people say, oh, Bitcoin and XRP are competing. They're not competing. They do not serve the same purpose. Bitcoin is not concerned about what XRP is doing because ultimately, Bitcoin is not in the same business. Same idea with Chainlink. Chainlink provides data API connections. They provide on-chain and off-chain data back and forth. And so Chainlink is not competing against XRP. They're not in a competition because they're not in the same business. And very often, because it's all cryptocurrency, it's all an assumption that all of these different blockchains are essentially in direct competition against each other, when in all honesty, they're really not. They're really not. And so this would be companies and projects that are directly competing against XRP. So these are more concerning, in all honesty. It's not concerning if Chainlink partners with, some different central bank and you don't hear that XRP did it. Not a big deal. But if Tether partners with that other bank, then you can pretty much bet that that bank is not going to be partnering with XRP. They're in the entirely same space. Sorry for that short caveat, but I felt like that might be a helpful one going into the future. And so, but right here in September, Tether's sister company Bitfinex launched Plasma, a new blockchain which offers users zero fee transactions for the USDT stablecoin. Swift, we all know all about Swift. Swift, the global payment network, along with several banks, are working with Ethereum. Layer 2 network Linea, the big whale, a blockchain research firm, reported on Friday. The firms plan to use the network to experiment with migrating their payment messaging systems on chain. Stripe, another household name. Stripe, the online payment giant, is also working with crypto investment firm Paradigm to launch Tempo, a new blockchain entirely that is designed for payments. Schwartz has commented on this. We've been seeing more and more players in the payment and stablecoin space launch their own blockchains. Schwartz said back in an August X post, to me, that's a clear sign the market sees blockchain as core financial infrastructure, something we've believed in and have been building towards on the XRP ledger for over 13 years. And so placing this move by David Schwartz in the context of the current time where we are seeing a massive escalation of essentially the race to see who is going to control the largest market share going into the new financial system, that has led to there being some concern over this. David Schwartz is viewed by many because he is the public face of Ripple's technology. He is the public face. Brad Garlinghouse is the public face of Ripple as a company and a business. But David Schwartz was the public face of Ripple as a technology, directly in regards to the technology. That has people both concerned and some people happy. And so it's kind of a mixed bag right now coming from the XRP community. Some people had seen David Schwartz's comments in regards to certain community members, price predictions and such. And well, they felt like he was essentially being very bearish, very negative towards XRP as a whole, while others viewed him essentially as a genius savant in terms of his coding capabilities and what he had built at Ripple. And so no matter how you look at this, it is a fairly major shift when it comes down to it for Ripple. And it will become very evident probably in the coming months whether David Schwartz essentially has had more of a rough breakup from XRP or whether we're still going to see David Schwartz kind of taking on the role of being the technological face of XRP, because he did build it. And there's essentially only two other guys on the whole planet who can speak with the same degree of confidence and professionalism in regards to how the XRP ledger works. And so we are going to have to see on this one. This has got a lot of folks excited, a lot of other folks worried. No matter how you look at it, it is absolutely going to lead to some volatility and concern all around in terms of the goals where XRP as a company, Ripple Labs as a company, is going. And so, what is everyone else's thoughts? Who has seen this guy's face? I know that I have received from community members, I received these videos. And so when it talks about these videos here, I received these videos from community members. I've received a lot of videos that had David Schwartz's face in them, because he appeared to be essentially the face that every single scam type operation was utilizing, using deep fakes, using AI to essentially have David say whatever it is that fit the current person's agenda. And so I'm curious, if y'all have seen this guy, what your thoughts are. How much do you know about him? And well, is it somebody that maybe because of where I'm coming from, more on the technical side of the blockchain, is it someone that I know about that honestly the rest of the community really didn't have any clue the guy existed? I'm curious. I'm very curious on this one. So definitely, folks, what are your thoughts? How many of y'all know about him? Things of that nature. I'm going to go through and see what all I missed on that one real quick. Musical Lady, great explanation, Zester, of the midnight airdrop on last Friday. I saw replay. It's a real bummer for us XRP holders not having a native way to claim the airdrop, and hope soon for a workaround with Ledger. Well, thank you so much, Musical Lady. And I hope so as well, that we have a native way, a seamless way to make that claim, because it is very frustrating. It's very, very frustrating to do things the right way, and then essentially to have a situation like this kind of punish you, in all honesty, for doing things the right way. Because if we had just kept our XRP in a common wallet, which is not near as secure as a ledger, well, it was a very easy process. So I'm hoping as well, Musical Lady, that we see a true answer come out from either Ledger, the company, the hardware wallet company, or from XRP themselves, or even Midnight. They may have to go ahead and build it themselves, but fingers crossed we get a much easier answer. Yeah, hi Trish. Yep, keeping my fingers crossed they will add something else for XP, but now do have its common wallet if I have to go that way. Yep, that's where I'm at also, Trish, and it's, I just really don't want to go through the insanity that's essentially necessary right now. It would be, I think that it would be dangerous process for many people. I think that there's a high likelihood that the way that essentially is necessary to go right now, I think that there's a high likelihood that someone or a multitude of people could potentially mess up during the process and cause a problem for themselves. And so I'm very concerned on that one. I really hope we get a better answer. Really hope we get a better answer from that. Treebeard Zester, this all sounds negative for XRP on the whole. We're not certain. We're not certain. Now, this is an interesting one, though. D3, sell. The CTO is going to dump all of his XRP. That's interesting that you said that, D3. Because, well, David Schwartz is very interesting on that front. Because David Schwartz was essentially a founding member of Ripple. But David Schwartz did not want paid in XRP. And so, David Schwartz, Chief Technology Officer for Ripple, one of the original architects of the XRP ledger, pivotal role in blockchain technology all around, and known online as Joel Katz, a very highly respected figure in the digital currency space. Now, Schwartz became involved in crypto in its early days. He mined 250 Bitcoin starting in 2011. However, he sold his Bitcoin holdings to invest in XRP and Ethereum, citing concerns over Bitcoin's proof of work model, which he views as inefficient and energy intensive. He supports Ripple's consensus model and Ethereum's shift to a proof of stake model. Now, despite his foundational role in creating XRP, Schwartz did not receive XRP as a part of the initial distribution. Instead, he purchased his XRP tokens from the secondary market. Now, his entry price was revealed in July of 2025 at 0.006. And so a little over half a penny per XRP was his entry price when he bought XRP. And it is believed that he has an XRP balance of 26 million tokens at that time, but that he has since sold a portion of his XRP holdings, including a significant amount in late 2017 and early 2018, which he described as a strategy to de-risk his portfolio. Notably, he chose a salary and a 2% stake in XRP and Ripple, the company, over XRP when joining the company, a decision he later acknowledged as a financial mistake. And so D3, he does have a lot of Ripple left. He probably still has 12 million plus, maybe more, XRP, but he purchased them. He was not given them as a part of the salary. What he now acknowledges as being a major financial mistake on his part. But that one is interesting, D3, because yes, there is a concern whenever somebody like this leaves a project that you're going to see a sell-off because, well, that person's going to sell off a large portion of their holdings. In this case, D3, I think it's going to be somewhat muted because David Schwartz, I don't think has, but so many. It's still a lot of XRP. Don't get me wrong. That's a lot of money. But he is staying with the company as CTO emeritus. He is continuing with and staying pro XRP, and he didn't get the same type of amounts. It's not like the same idea of a Brad Garlinghouse were to say they were going to sell their entire XRP holdings. Now we're talking about billions of dollars. David Schwartz, he doesn't even break 100 million. Yeah, chump change, right? It's still a lot of money, absolutely. But it is a little bit, it should be a little bit more muted if we do see it, D3. D3, we've seen this with LTC sell now. Hey, you know, to each their own on that one. Treebeard, I'm ready for you to drop the silver lining. Hey, Kukla, have a drink of coffee. Yeah, absolutely. I had my coffee earlier. I've got my my methylene blue now that I'm still finishing up. Got my 4 drops this morning. Gary, there's a good one. My friend won a trophy for raising a large rabbit. She won by a hair. Gary 7, Zester, will a shutdown hurt or help crypto? Well, that's a great question. That's a great question, Gary, in all honesty on that one. That's actually something that we kind of have some articles that to a degree talk about it in kind of a different way, but I'm gonna make some connect some dots here, Gary, on this one. And so Gary asks, Zester, will a shutdown hurt or help crypto? Gary 7, essentially, any degree of lack of faith in your government is an endorsement of crypto. And so as governments fail in any form or fashion, whether they fail financially, in terms of the central bank, or whether they fail in a larger way in terms of just mismanagement of the country's funds, well, it's going to be viewed as good news for cryptocurrency. And so in that regard, any weakening of public faith in the government in many ways could be viewed as a positive for cryptocurrency on the whole. Cryptocurrency is designed to circumnavigate governments and banks. It was created because essentially at the core, crypto as a technological, as blockchain being used for cryptocurrency as an invention, it was essentially invented to solve the problem of there's too much power in the hands of central banks and governments, and we need a way to circumnavigate it. And so, in many ways, Gary, you could argue that a shutdown is of benefit to cryptocurrency in the long term. It might result in the prices going down for short term, but long term, it's more and more reinforcement in the minds of the global citizen that my government can't be trusted. And this article actually ties directly to that, Gary, in regards to France. French central bank deficit is great for Bitcoin, says Arthur Hayes. France's over $176 billion budget deficit may signal trillions of euros of newly printed money, potentially leading to more capital flow into Bitcoin, according to Arthur Hayes. The ballooning financial deficit of France's central bank may spur a new wave of money printing, potentially unlocking billions in new capital for Bitcoin. So the Banque de France reported a net loss of 7.7 billion euros in fiscal year 2024, mainly driven by negative net interest income due to high interest payments, according to a press release in March of 2025. This brought France's government deficit to over 168 billion euros in 2024, representing 5.8% of the country's gross domestic product, significantly exceeding the European Union's 3% limit. And so this makes France one of the worst performers in the Euro bloc. And Arthur Hayes, co-founder of cryptocurrency exchange BitMEX, believes that France's financial deficit may catalyze trillions of euros of money printing by European Central Bank, signaling fresh liquidity. French capital is leaving France. And if you take a look at the gross change of any other member, it's the worst, Hayes said. The real threat is French capital leaving for Germans and Japanese investing in their home markets because the U.S. is changing the world order. This is what predicates the ECB to print now or print later in the trillions of euros, and that's the aggregate size. Another great thing for crypto. And so the reason that I tie these two things together is because essentially Arthur Hayes' argument is that the worse that a government's currency is doing, the better Bitcoin will do. And so the worse that the country's governments, the planet's governments continue to do financially, that we are going to continue to see more and more and more growth in the crypto space. And so it's a very, very odd thing. Essentially, you are viewing your crypto financial future as being benefited by the financial present being crap. If the financial present is getting worse and worse and worse, well, then the future of your cryptocurrency financial system is getting brighter and brighter and brighter. It would be, it's essentially, it's very counterintuitive in many ways. It's counterintuitive to the just common person. If I walked up to you onto the street and I said, hey, would a terrible economic situation right now result in your investments doing infinitely better in the future? You probably wouldn't feel all that confident right now. You'd say there's no correlation between me doing poorly right now with my investments doing well in the future. Those two things are not correlated. It's just a market. But, well, in this sense, there seems to be kind of an establishing correlation where essentially the worse the financial world gets, the better the crypto future starts to look. It's kind of crazy. It's kind of crazy. Kukla, you missed the troll Zesters. Yeah. Nice. I'm glad I got y'all guys on that one. Glad I got y'all guys for certain. Kukla, hope Bark pops in to say hello. That would be nice. He's got the ability to at any point. He knows what he's doing. American Renewal Patriot Schwartz knows what he's holding. He already lost a fortune by selling his Bitcoin when he left. Won't do that goof up again. I see American Renewal Patriot. I'm leaning towards kind of a similar. I'm leaning towards a very similar idea. He made the comment publicly that he made a huge financial mistake by not taking XRP as payment. And so I highly doubt that he's going to change that tune. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. I have to imagine that David Schwartz is sitting in that position where, he made the mistake the first time of valuing the US dollar over XRP. He made that mistake once. I can't imagine that he's going to make that mistake a second time. Can't imagine that he's going to. And so I would lean towards the same. I would lean towards the same. All right. Looking for any more questions. All right. Let's jump back over to our news. We got a few more interesting ones, actually. Today was an exciting, it was an interesting news article morning. We've had a lot of particularly boring ones recently, the past week or so, or we've only really had one big story. But actually, the copywriters out there in the crypto world, they were kind of busy over the weekend. And so here's another one. This one, I think, is... Well, it's interesting, especially coming from our perspective, because we're a channel and we're a community who are learning about cryptocurrency. And now we're seeing more and more that, more people are waking up in the mainstream to the idea that they need to become more knowledgeable about crypto. And so you don't understand crypto, buckle up. On this week's More to the Story, journalist Molly White examines the rise and fall of FTX and the ever-growing reach of cryptocurrency in American politics. And so essentially going through this one, it goes through and it's designed to be essentially a very, very basic overview of kind of some of the things that have happened in the world of crypto since it began. And really now tying it towards a world where everyone's going to need to stop viewing cryptocurrency as niche. And that essentially we're in that time. Cryptocurrency is going from being something that you don't really need to know about to becoming something that you're going to have to learn how to use, or you're going to have to at least understand what's happening because it's going to be controlling your present. And so I found the article to be interesting in that regard because it comes very much from a perspective of someone who is entirely new, with an answer back and forth style of the conversation. I'm not a huge fan of Mother Jones articles, But I did think that this one was an interesting one for folks that have a little extra time and want to go on a little bit of a history back, a nostalgia run through crypto and the major advancements that have occurred over the past 10 years. Well, it's an interesting article to go into, and it's especially interesting when you kind of go through it in terms of imagining and seeing the way that crypto was being discussed 5 years ago or 8 years ago versus the way that crypto is being discussed today. Because it really has been a polar shift. We have gone from every major news outlet, every major economist, financial talking head screaming about how crypto is all a bunch of crap, to every single major financial institution, major bank, major talking head, major economist screaming that cryptocurrency is the future, and that it's happening, and that everyone who's not a part of it is silly, and just a complete 180 on what they were all saying just a couple of years ago. And when you look at the history of crypto in this type of way, it becomes very, very evident how the narrative has been changing. And that narrative has gone from criminal, insane, maniacs, silly money, waste of money, going to lose all your money. You're a maniac, you're crazy, you're wasting it. It's, people had some pretty rude comments to make for people that were in the cryptocurrency space just a couple of years ago. And I know that because I received those rude comments from a lot of people that were in the traditional financial space. And to them, I was a charlatan that was selling funny money, or, trying to convince people that funny money was the way of the future. And now when you look at it, you can see with something like this, you can see that polar shift. And I find that to be very, very interesting, because undoubtedly, there's more to that shift than just what meets the eye. Gary 7, someone tried to get me to buy Egyptian crypto. I thought it was a pyramid scheme. That was a good one, Gary. That was a good one. All right. Let's jump, though. Oh, man, actually, I just saw that one. Mile High Trish, I was talking crypto to a Gen X yesterday. She was clueless and doubtful. Head shaking. It is. It's a little scary. It's a little scary. There is a massive break occurring across generations in terms of crypto knowledge. And the crazy thing is that it seems to be breaking across a variety of different generational lines. And it's concerning. It's concerning because even amongst some of the youngest demographics, we don't have any major literacy on the subject. We're having massively dropping financial literacy rates all over the country, which we already had horrible financial literacy rates across the country. That's not new, but it's getting worse. It's getting way worse. And it's really scary to imagine it getting worse at a time like this when we are moving towards an entirely new financial system. And so if people are so lacking in knowledge now, how bad is that going to get when we look 10 years down the future and we're in an entirely new financial system and it's been humming along for years? Where are people going to be? It's concerning. I'm worried about the lack of knowledge, but it's also not something that hasn't happened before. Essentially, we can see this process having occurred in the past many times. It's just never been as momentous. It's never been as huge of a shift. But we can go back and see the beginning of, credit and debit cards, when you had to go through and you do a whole swish, swipe in order to record it. We can go back through and we can look at, when credit and debit cards first came onto the scene, every major financial firms, what did they all come out and say? They said, nobody's going to trust that. Everybody's going to be paying with checks forever. Checks are the future. Checks are the best way. We've already figured out the best system. It'll always be that way. And then we know that's not true. We know amongst essentially my generation and lower that I don't know too many people who know how to write a check. And so we know that we've had these major financial shifts, and we know in the past people have not been ready for it, and yet We've adapted. The problem here is this is a far larger shift than just, hey, now I can use a piece of plastic to spend money out of my bank account. That was a big shift. This makes that look like nothing. That was a nothing shift. This is an entire reimagining of how ownership even works, happening in real time. And so it's even more important, I think, that people are more knowledgeable of the financial shift than they were in the past of them. I hope that made sense and how I went about explaining my concerns on that one. I hope so. Gary 7, you say lack of knowledge, but that looks more like USA. Other countries seem to be more knowledgeable. Gary 7, it does seem like the average citizen in most other countries are far, far more knowledgeable when it comes to finances overall. Not even just in the crypto space or anything else, but just overall how money works. It seems like as Americans, we print the money for the world, and yet we seem to have one of the lowest understandings of how it works. I would definitely agree with that, Gary. I think on average, you would probably find a far more financially literate person in many European countries, which is ironic in many, many ways. All right. Kukla, hey, Zester, how is Tina, Tino, and Tommy? Oh, they are doing well, Kukla. Tommy is a little upset, though. Tommy is a little upset because of my haircut. And so Tommy has been a little confused for the past day or so. He keeps walking around the corner and staring at my head like he recognizes me, but that like I've done something wrong. Like I've personally offended Tommy by having my haircut. But that didn't stop him this morning from spending a good 30 minutes sitting back here playing with my hair. So I think he's forgiving me. Treebeard, nobody liked the Prius when they first came out. Now you see them everywhere and think nothing of it. Crocs. Look at Crocs. Crocs were ridiculed. Absolutely ridiculed. Everybody was like, no one in the world's going to wear Crocs. Do people remember the movie Idiocracy? Idiocracy, if you haven't seen the movie or it's been a long time, it's a must-see movie. Pretty much a insight into the future movie from the early 2000s. But back in Idiocracy, the director had everybody in the movie wear Crocs because he believed that they were such a stupid invention that there is no way that they would ever be worn by rational people. And so now, look at the world. Everybody owns a pair of Crocs. And so you do have to wonder, Treebeard, Zester, we are living the world of Idiocracy. Absolutely. We are. That movie seemed like a joke when it came out back in the early 2000s. Now, I'm not laughing near as much when I watch it. And you know what? Like Trish, I have Crocs on my feet right now. Crocs are amazing, and they're super, super comfortable. And so I get it. The whole world is going to be wearing Crocs one day. We will all be buying Crocs one day. I'm certain at this point. Because they are so comfortable. They're insanely comfortable. Everybody that has a pair loves them. But I didn't predict it at all back in the future, and many people did. Idiocracy is all around us. Very much true there, Kukla. All right, I've got a few more articles, and here we go. This is one that I really wanted to cover with everybody because this is one we talk about in different ways a lot. What is happening here? Bitcoin revives its gold correlation as BTC price nears 117K. Bitcoin pushed higher towards 117,000 on Wednesday as bulls ignored downside liquidity to follow gold as it hit fresh all-time highs. Bitcoin sees a fresh uptick ahead of the Wall Street Open with 117,000 in sight. Liquidity below price thickens, leading to concerns that the price may still take out longs, aka that we may see a little bit of a downward flash crash that will result in the liquidation of people who have taken leveraged long positions. You guys know how I feel about any leveraged position. It gets me all kinds of salty because it causes us all problems. But there is a concern that there's not a lot of strength below the current price, and that means it wouldn't be hard for the price of Bitcoin to drop fairly quickly, resulting in liquidations. But what this article is specifically talking about is that the charts are going back to following each other. And so this is something that used to happen fairly often. The price of Bitcoin and the Bitcoin chart would go into a phase of correlation with the gold chart. Essentially, on a day-to-day basis, it seemed as if gold and Bitcoin were essentially matching pace. Bitcoin up 1%, gold up 1%. Gold down 1%, Bitcoin down 1%. This is a fairly loose correlation because there are a variety of other factors. It could be coincidence, but it's happened so often that it's outside of the realm of coincidence. And so over time, over the history of the Bitcoin and crypto markets being compared to the gold and silver markets, this correlation has occurred many, many, many times where the charts start to follow each other. And well, they just started doing that again. And so this in and of itself may just be of somewhat intrigue to some of the folks out there that are very, very into the precious metal markets. But it's one of the things that very often people have pointed at to show that in the long term, people believe that the Bitcoin market is going to start correlating more and more and more so with gold. And there's a large belief among many of the Bitcoin maxis that essentially we're going to start getting into a world where after crypto has really established itself, where Bitcoin and gold and precious metals are really going to start operating even more so hand in hand. This has been a long held belief by many that in the long term, we were going to see this start to happen. And ultimately, we've seen periods of correlation and we've seen periods where the correlation broke. And seemingly the price of gold and Bitcoin seem to be working even in the inverse from each other. This one is very interesting for, I think, many folks like myself, because I am very big on crypto and precious metals. I'm not a stock person. I don't believe, essentially, in the financial future of many of these different companies and many of the stock exchange, essentially, as it operates today. I'm not a big believer in the long-term validity of planning my financial future on, treasury bond yields or CDs. It's not for me. I strongly believe in the things that we're not making more of, or that have an intrinsic value. And so real estate, gold, silver, and cryptocurrency, very much my focus in terms of what I pay attention to. And so this is a very important one for those that are like me going into the future. Are we going to see this correlation continue? Are we going to see that Bitcoin maxis future world that they have imagined come to fruition, where we essentially see Bitcoin as digital gold, Bitcoin taking the role of digital gold, and gold and silver being tokenized, but still being tied to a physical real world asset, and that essentially that is going to become the new financial system. And that has been very long the Bitcoin maxis belief, is that they are going to essentially have stable coins, and all of these other cryptocurrencies are going to operate essentially in between the major wealth storages of tokenized gold and silver, tokenized real world assets, and Bitcoin as the digital representation of long-term wealth storage. I know many folks out there will probably have a variety of opinions on that one. I don't necessarily fall in line with the Bitcoin maxis belief on this entirely at all myself. I think that there's far more in between. I think they've created a little bit too much of a hard structure in terms of their belief that there's just going to be essentially two big things, gold and silver and Bitcoin. And I don't think that's going to naturally be the case. But I do think they are right in that gold, silver in a tokenized form, real world assets in a tokenized form, and Bitcoin are going to be around for a very, very long time and viewed as wealth management, not as investing in the future. They're going to be viewed as a way of managing and consolidating and keeping a hold of wealth, not necessarily generating new wealth, but maintaining wealth. And that, in many ways, is how gold and silver have been used throughout the past. Very often, they have been viewed as a way not of necessarily investing your money, but of conserving your financial wealth. And so I do think that we're going to move towards a world more and more where gold and silver take back over in many ways, along with Bitcoin, as being the major ways that people maintain their financial wealth, that people plan for retirement and the like. XRP theory. Welcome to Costco. I love you. Idiocracy. I went to college here. Yeah, what was it? Fredo got his, that's where he became a lawyer. He went to Costco University. That movie is just too bad. It is too funny. Musical lady, Bitcoin realizes the gold itself is a hot commodity, getting ready for revalue and positioning itself by following each other. Musical, I think that in many ways that they are going to operate, maybe not with like a direct correlation, but in tandem. I think that that's going to absolutely happen. And we know from the signaling from the U.S. government and the warnings we're receiving from finance ministers around the world that the United States currently has a strategy that they are executing, and it is in regards to cryptocurrency, stablecoins, and gold. It is our plan. And so the United States is we are up to shenanigans right now. It's happening right now. Now, we, of course, all being on the outside looking in, we're having to take the information we get out of it. We're having to extrapolate. But ultimately, it's happening. Right now, gold, silver, cryptocurrency in the form of stable coins, really, and in the form of strategic reserves is very obviously a part of the U.S. plan on how we're planning on getting out of our financial problem. And the Russian minister really laid that one out pretty explicitly in regards to it just a few weeks ago, where he stated essentially that the United States was going to utilize stable coins and the revaluation of gold in order to wipe out its entire multi-trillion debt, which he alluded to it being somewhere around over $100 trillion. But, regularly we hear the $37-38 trillion number being thrown around in terms of U.S. debt. But he strongly believes we're intending to manipulate the precious metal markets and manipulate the U.S. dollar value in order to essentially make our debt worthless and just erase it. We're hearing that a lot. At a certain point, you have to start wondering, when you start hearing the same thing from so many different sources, you have to start wondering whether it's a coincidence or whether there's something more going on. Shannon Martins, people are so fast asleep here in Denmark when mentioning crypto. Shannon, that's odd. I would have expected, and that's something we've seen, because many folks thought that crypto adoption was going to essentially follow along the lines of the most advanced countries. Most technologically advanced countries would be the first to really embrace cryptocurrency because it would be the easiest for us. We have the phones, we have the computers, we have the online banking, we have all of this essential learning process already accomplished in order for it to be easier, supposedly, for us to become crypto users. And in all honesty, it didn't work out that way. We've seen essentially that third world countries have far outpaced crypto knowledge over many, many technologically advanced European nations. And so, yeah, no, it is, Shannon. It does kind of, it has been against what many people thought. James Nixon, do you have a fave 5? That's a tough one. That's a tough one, James. That is, and I would say that essentially I kind of do, but I really can't break it down to just 5. If I were forced to break it down to 5, it really would be a very, very, very top heavy 5. If I were to have to narrow it down to 5. And so, of course, I'm preceding this by not financial advice and I hold far more than just 5 different cryptos, and I like a lot of projects that are not going to be in my list of 5. But if I were to pick top 5 rolling straight off the top of the chart, Bitcoin, Ethereum, XRP, Chainlink, absolutely would be on that list. And so I would absolutely go XRP, Ethereum, Bitcoin, and then I would fall down here to Chainlink. And then overall, in terms of the 5th slot, that would be tough. That would be tough. In the past, it was definitely Stellar, and I'm still a big fan of Stellar all around. But I would have to say that there's a little bit of a competition now in terms of that 5th slot, because I've been far happier actually with HBAR's progress over the past year or so in comparison to Stellar's progress as a company. And so, yeah, those are going to be a generalized basic there all around. One that I would say, essentially, it is my quote-unquote favorite in certain ways, would be Pax Gold. Not because I believe that we should be, or that I believe I should be a huge holder of Pax Gold in this moment. Pax Gold is the cryptocurrency that is pegged to a gold ounce. And so one Pax Gold token is worth 1 gold ounce. There's 1 gold ounce sitting in a bank in London that represents that token. I would say that this one would make my honorary mention of the top 5 because it is the best representation of the future financial system. This is very much the way that what we are going towards is going to work. This is very much it. We are moving towards a world where these real world assets are going to be better utilized in a tokenized form. And so I think that I would essentially toss Pax Gold in there, even though I'm not very much a large holder of Pax Gold. I don't have a lot. Most of my gold and silver, all of it pretty much remains in physical form. But this is absolutely, as we progress towards the new financial system, this is where my precious metals are going to be. My precious metals are going to be probably half tokenized, half actually sitting in the gun safe. All right, that one. I hope that one helped a little interesting, if anything, for some folks on that one. In terms of any last articles, I do have a few, but I guess we can probably save some of those. Although I would say right here, I will leave one last article before I go running off on everybody that I'll talk about for a second, because this definitely correlates with our last conversation and our last topic, talking about where we're seeing crypto adoption and who seems to be at the cutting edge of it. And well, from Nairobi to Lagos, how Africans are using stablecoins to survive inflation. In Nairobi and Lagos, stablecoins like USDT and USDC help people fight inflation, cut costly remittances, and move money through mobile wallets such as M-Pesa. Stables are becoming an everyday tool for savings, payment, and trade in Nairobi and Lagos. And this is something that we're seeing all over the world. We are seeing in countries who have weak financial systems already, we are seeing cryptocurrency is essentially the way out. And this is only spreading. This is from literally, we saw it occur in Iran during the conflict with Israel. We immediately saw Iranians start fleeing to cryptocurrency. We go to Nigeria. We see Nigeria's government screwing around with their dollars. Guess where all of the people are going? They're going to cryptocurrency. Look at Venezuela. Venezuelans are essentially going to be operating in a full crypto world in the next year or so if something massive does not change. And so the best way to make people become crypto holders is to screw up the value of your country's currency. It is the fastest way to drive people to crypto. It is like the fastest. There's no better way. You can't educate people into moving their wealth over to crypto as fast as you can scare them into moving their wealth over to crypto. And the governments of the world, are busy right now scaring everybody who lives in their country over to cryptocurrency. They are very, very busy doing it. All right, though, guys, with that one, and I will toss this article also into the chat for anyone who wants to check that one out. And Kuka and Mile High Trish, thank you guys so much for all of the help, keeping everything running. And yes, I will be at the Whiskey and Wisdom this evening, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, over on the original Mark Z. Looking forward to Whiskey and Wisdom this evening. Think we've got some good plans. I know we've got some exciting, think there will be an exciting little reveal during it, but well, we'll all find out together. And so, thank you guys so much. Love you all. Everyone have an amazing, amazing rest of the Trump day. If I don't see you over at Whiskey and Wisdom, I'll be back over here 11:30 a.m. on Friday. We'll be doing crypto chat again. So, peace, guys.